Well, hello there, and welcome to day 56 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today I am covering the 2019 film Stan and Ollie. So, I suppose confession seems like the best place to start with this, which is I was talking with Helen just before we watched the film because it occurred to me that I've not really seen any Laurel and Hardy films. Now, bear in mind, I of course have seen bits of Laurel and Hardy films just because I live in the world and I'm aware of them through the zeitgeist, and I've seen sequences and clips and things, but I just haven't seen one of their films. I mean, it's I don't know if that's a demonstration of a glaring gap in my knowledge, or whether it's just something people just don't go, well, it's just not relevant. It's a curious one. But I do feel a little guilty because, you know, like with Mank, I watched Citizen Kane before. There was another one which I've tried to sort of watch something relevant before the film about, you know, when it's a film about culture and film culture specifically. I've tried to watch a film that, you know, so theoretically I could have watched Laurel and Hardy films, but I just scheduling. So this stars Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly as I'm going to get them mixed up now. Hold on, let's get this right. Stan Lawrence and Oliver Hardy. And yeah, it's a very sweet film. It is definitely my slight bit of relief film after the heavy, complex films I've been watching recently that have been thinkers, but not, you know, I've kind of got away and had to think a lot about them, and there's a lot of themes and complex ideas that I need to chew over. Whereas this is definitely I can take a breath, I can have some fun and just watch this nice film about two beloved performers. Now, that isn't to say there's nothing in this film, that it's all just fluff and you know, fan lip service. There is that interesting conversation about the relationship of the double act. Because, I mean, I'm a follower of Richard Herring's podcast, so for years, and he, of course, talks quite extensively about his partnership with Stuart Lee, and the fact that they now don't really have a friendship or any kind of relationship, you know, and considering they spent decades working or at least a decade plus working together in comedy, to have such an intense relationship with someone to then not have any relationship with them at all kind of speaks to the tension and the sacrifice, I suppose, when going into becoming a double act. And of course, there are numerous cases of double acts who just fell apart and you know, their relationships became fractured and or non-existent. But then at the same time, you also have those partnerships where they become, you know, they're intertwined in each other's lives permanently, and you know, I think when it comes to the double act, there's something to be said about it. There's part of it is almost like a marriage, part of it's almost like being brothers, and then there's something else in the mix there that's its own intangible concept that links two people together, especially when they have, you know, creatively poured themselves into their careers and creating something that is so beloved. And of course, the film slightly over dramatizes the tension between Laurel and Hardy, you know, between the film at the beginning when we see them in 1937, you know, at the peak of their career, when they're working together and they are, you know, household names in Hollywood. And of course then jumps 16 years later to show that they really haven't had much of a relationship, and this is their last hurrah, really, before they at this point they're in their 60s, and this is really their last hurrah before they end their career forever. But of course, that is over dramatized a little. Just to do a little cursory reading after watching the film, it wasn't. The film implies that they didn't speak for a decade and a half, when in fact they had a relationship, and maybe there were suggestions of fractures, but they did work together on films during that period. And so it is a little over dramatized, but of course it must be. Um, it's a really sweet film, Steve Coogan. I was talking a lot about Tom Hanks and the fact that Tom Hanks is an actor who you cannot see beyond him, as in he is an actor who he can embody a part, but he cannot disappear in the part. And similarly, Steve Coogan, he's a very versatile actor, but when you see Steve Coogan in something, you will always see elements of Steve Coogan playing, in this case, Stan Lawrence. Stan Lawrence, goodness me. Stan Laurel. And again, it's difficult for me because I don't know what the portrayal of Laurel was like, what his real personality was like. But Steve Coogan really does bring this richness. And as I say, he is there. You can still see him through the character. But he really makes it his own and melds it to a point where you don't care. And Laurel as a person might have been very different from Steve Coogan, but there's such a deepness and richness in his performance, and you genuinely feel sorry for this guy who really is very aware of the twilight of his career, but is desperately trying to revitalise it and resurrect the glory that he once had. And John C. Reilly, who went through a lot more harder of an experience with this, being put in a suit that he described as a mask for your body, which is this great fat suit. They really pair well together. They do have very good chemistry, and I can't say I've seen a great number of John C. Reilly films, weirdly, except Step Brothers, which I hate. I do not like that film at all. But John C. Reilly, again, brings this warmth and richness to his character, and the sadness and melancholy of someone whose health is failing, and you see him really go from someone who is reluctant to return to the limelight in this big way, to kind of getting sucked into it and start to really become quite creatively reinvigorated, but struggling against ill health. And the two of them together just have this great chemistry. They really do play off each other really well. And so that when you get to the climax, you genuinely care about them both, and you care about their friendship or their working relationship, and where there are fractures or conflicts, you feel sorry that these two have had to sacrifice so much to become Laurel and Hardy, that they, the people, Stan and Ollie, or Babe, as Ollie is referred to sort of affectionately, that they've sacrificed themselves and their relationship to some degree for the prestige that they obviously then developed. It's a very sweet film. It's a very, like I said, there's nothing majorly groundbreaking about it. Really, it is just a nice, sweet, character-driven film that you sort of really get sucked into. The only thing which I will point out, acknowledge, is the opening scene, which is set in 1937, which follows them walking through Hollywood sets, talking to the directors and studio owners, and that's done in a single tracking style shot. Now I don't know if it's done in one take or not, but you're just following them through, and there is that real sense of energy to it where everyone is centered around them, even if they're butting heads with someone. You know, they are the center of attention, and everything is built on them, which of course contrasts the rest of the film, where there's this real sense of them becoming fossils and culturally irrelevant. People know who they are, but they're not in the public consciousness in the same way. But like I say, that opening shot really, shows. I mean, John S. Baird, who I was previously aware of from Filth, and I love Filth, which is the James McAvoy corrupt police drama, black comedy kind of, and he really shows his depth and ability as a filmmaker in that, and you can see touches of it in Stan and Ollie, although I think he's not pushing too hard to be too artsy about it, whereas Filth definitely does push its more extreme creative style. And then I've also just learned that he's going to go on to direct the Tetris film, which is curious. The existence of a Tetris film is quite odd, but he is a filmmaker who I would be intrigued to see how he would make a Tetris film. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, it brings back the question of, did anyone want a Tetris film, and what exactly would that look like? But that's a future issue. But yeah, like I say, sweet film, very nice, gentle. I regret not seeing it at the cinema at the time, and now thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, this was quite a nice breath of fresh air. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe for my videos if you want to see more and go back through my playlist of previous film discussions and reviews. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley. Right. Thanks again. Take care.